you remember, I know you were really young when you were in the Ethiopian refugee camp.
My dad, for a while, he was one of the leaders at the refugee camp, and they had to beg him to fill out the form.
How impressed/proud were your parents when you got to captain the South Sudan side?
They had to walk thousands of miles or kilometers to try and reach Ethiopia. It was like walking from Washington, D.C. to LA. Can you imagine?
And is basketball your family's main sport now?
My sister's on my team. Like, you guys can go over there, and I love that.
Why is it important that we try and keep more girls and women in sport? Welcome to 4TG. The pathway to pro sport in Australia is hard enough. Add displacement, cultural pressure, living between two identities, and starting late, and most people would call it impossible. Our guest today never did. Nya Lok was born in an Ethiopian refugee camp after her South Sudanese parents fled the civil war. She grew up in Cranbourne at age 5, picked up basketball in high school, and had something you cannot teach. But talent doesn't always remove barriers. She had to learn a new system fast, carry the weight of family sacrifice, and fight for opportunities not always built for girls like her. She went on to captain the first South Sudan women's basketball team in the international competition, earned her spot with the Southside Flyers in the WNBL after being a train-on with no contract, and this year has just signed with the Perth Lynx. Despite all the barriers that Nya faced, she's been very open in saying that she doesn't want sympathy because she built herself into something from nothing, and that should reflect empowerment, not pity. This episode is about backing yourself when the path isn't clear and building belief when no one just hands it to you. I know you're going to get a lot out of today's episode, so please be sure to pay it forward by sharing it with someone who needs to hear it and following 4TG on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube to ensure we can keep sharing important stories of incredible female athletes like Nya. Nya Lok, welcome to the 4TG podcast.
Thank you. What an intro. I love that. Yeah, I loved it. I will say, though, I did not grow up in Cranbourne.
You didn't?
I've grown up on many different places. So
Right.
I actually grew up here in Collingwood.
Is that right?
Yeah,
So
on
are you
Perry
Collingwood
Street.
supporter?
No, at the time we were Richmond supporters
Okay.
because my brother had played AFL Kids,
Yeah.
Auskick.
Auskick.
Yeah.
Yep.
He played Auskick at Richmond. So we were Richmond supporters, and then whenever he moved to a different team, then we would move with him.
Really?
But we lived in Blackburn for 9 months.
Okay.
That's where I went to English language school there to learn
Nice.
English, because when we first came, none of us knew English at all.
Yeah, right.
And so we were there for a while, and then we moved to Collingwood, and then from Collingwood we went to Springvale, and then from Springvale we went to Cranbourne.
Aha,
So,
okay.
yeah,
So you've
lived
been around.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good fact check.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've had that.
Yeah.
Now, I met up with Nick Croker last year it was because he watched or listened to the Izzy Bourne
Yeah,
episode,
podcast, yeah.
who's obviously a Southside flyer, and she was incredible, had a great mentality. And I asked him, I was like, are there any guests that you would like to hear? And he said, you have to get Nya on. She's an incredible person. She has an awesome story to tell. So I'm very excited that we get to delve deeper into that today and hear all about your childhood and all about the exciting things that you've achieved and are yet to still achieve.
Yeah, well, shout out to Nick, because this is my first podcast, so I'm thankful that I was able to do a podcast, so I'm excited.
Well, absolute privilege that this is your first. So, Nya, before we start, we always jump into the Snap Fitness rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I ask 3 questions, no time to think.
Yep.
Any answer's a good answer.
Just go,
We'll see how we go. Just go.
Yep.
All right. So first one, what was a belief that you had to unlearn to become the version of you that you are today and who could handle this level?
Gosh, that's an intense
We
fire
start
question
deep.
to start really deep. Yeah. Oof. Wow. Something that I had to unlearn. That failure is not a bad thing. I feel like for a long time, because I'm a perfectionist and, I overthink a lot, I had to learn failure is not a bad thing. And then when in the game of basketball, it was a coach that told me basketball is a game of mistakes. It's just who can make the least mistakes. And so I had to really unlearn that, because every time when the ball didn't go in, it was like, why isn't it going in 100% of the time? And it's like, bro, not even Steph Curry makes 50% of his shots. That's a pretty high standard to try and reach for. That is basically impossible to have 100% of your shots go in. And you hear it from the Michael Jordan quote all the time that he missed more than he made. So I feel like I really had to unlearn failure, what failure looked like for me.
That's a very good mindset tip, isn't it? Especially after you make a mistake in a game.
Yeah.
That it's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
Because all the professionals make them. And you probably got to miss more than you actually get the shots. So you're just going to keep taking them.
Exactly, yeah.
Great answer to the first one. This one, not so deep. What is your pre-game ritual?
Pre-game ritual. I have to have a shower. It's not in any particular order, but I have to have my long black coffee.
Yep.
Have to get my shots up. So usually I try to make 10 makes in 7 spots, and then I do a bit of like on the move shooting, and then I'll do some free throws, and then I'll stretch. So have to kind of have that in order before I start a game.
Nice. Any superstitions?
Well, now I feel like as I'm getting older, there is like I have to do my shooting routine. Otherwise, I feel like if my shot is off during a game, I'm like, yes, it's because I didn't do my shooting routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Very
that would
good.
be it. Yeah.
All right. And what would you say to the girl who feels too different to belong in sport?
That feels too different. Ooh, another deep one.
Bit of a sandwich, isn't it?
Yeah. Too different to play sport. I think probably cancel that mindset of like that you're too different to play the sport, because sports in itself brings people together all the time. It's like this one thing. That's why we have the Olympics. It's this one thing that unites so many people from different backgrounds, and exclusion is not a part of the sport. It's what people bring to exclude others. But sports alone in itself is a place where I feel like it centers many different cultures. And for me, I've learned so much about other cultures, and people have learned about mine through the sport alone, because it's like this one shared, I guess, outcome that you don't have to know the language, or you don't have to. There's a lot of like, you can learn each other from body language to things that are nonverbal. And so I feel like it's not, you don't have to feel too different to play the sport. Yeah.
I love sport because it gives us almost this universal language, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A universal set of rules. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what age you are, what language you speak. It gives us something to be connected by. So it's such a good soft diplomacy tool.
Exactly. And it doesn't discriminate with your age, your sex, your race. It doesn't matter. Like there's so many different things, especially for the game of basketball. Like now working at Basketball Victoria, there's so many things that people can engage in. There's walking basketball for senior citizens. There's a wheelchair basketball for those who might be handicapped. So there's so many different programs out there for people to fit into the sports that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from at all.
Absolutely. Now, you have an incredible backstory, and I'd like to get into some of it just to set the scene for people. So take us back to your childhood and tell us the story about that, but also the role that sport played in your childhood.
Yeah. Oof, incredible.
How long you got, you reckon?
To describe, so my family, like you said earlier, my parents were born in South Sudan, but they had to flee the war due to the civil war that occurred. We actually had 2 civil wars back in South Sudan, and so they had to leave their home country. They were born in a county called Nasser in South Sudan, and they had to walk thousands of miles or kilometers to try and reach Ethiopia, because back then there was no cars or anything. So they walked on foot. I know I did a presentation a while in America, and I said it was like walking from Washington, D.C. to L.A. Can you imagine? Like that's the distance between that is insane. And it's like, it's survival. So your body has to do what it needs to do in that time to survive. And so that's where me and majority of my siblings were born. 5 of my siblings were born in Ethiopian refugee camp. And so within that, there's like a process of how people can come to the Western world, or whether it's Australia, America, or Europe. It's through the United Nations. Like there's programs and there's forms that have to be filled out for family to be accepted, but there's a flood of forms. Like there's so many families that are trying to get out of the country. And so it's not that easy to just it's just by luck or by chance that you get to go to a different country. And so my dad, for a while, he was one of the leaders in that at the refugee camp. And they had to beg him to fill out the form, because he would just keep giving it to every other family, and he kept telling them, no, we're good, because we should have came to Australia in 2003, but we ended up coming back in 2005. And so for a long time he was like, no, we're good where we are. Like, we don't need to leave the country to go to let another family go. And then they were like, please, like, just fill it out. Let your family go. You should have a chance just like any other family. And so when my dad filled out those forms, then we got the chance to come here. So which was really cool. So initially we went to Blackburn first. And, you know, you kind of come with nothing. Like, you give away your, like, everything, clean house, and you give, I guess, your belongings to your family members because you don't think you'll need it. And so we literally came with nothing, like no understanding of what the West had to bring. And back then there wasn't social media to tell you what it was going to look like or feel like. So when we came here, it was definitely a huge culture shock. And it's something that we had to take day by day to understand Australia and assimilate to it. And so we went to language school in Blackburn for 9 months before we were able to go to an actual like primary school or high school at the time for my siblings. And so, yeah, those 9 months we learned English, and then we were thrown into the, you know, regular school curriculum system, and you just had to learn. And I think for us, a lot of the times I was so lucky that we lived in Collingwood because there were so many programs that allowed us to be a part of, to get to know the kids that were in that area, like Live Wires or Stitches. And the fact that they were free allowed like the weight of my parents having to figure out how this country works, how to pay bills, how to pay rent, how to fill out forms at schools and all that stuff. Like, that allowed my parents to kind of deal with that and allowed us to still have a childhood within here. So I was very grateful that we grew up in Collingwood. And then we kind of moved out. So a lot of the times I was a tomboy growing up, so I followed everything my brothers did. Like, I always wanted to go where they went, and they would be like, no, you're a girl, like, just stay home, you don't need to come with us. And I'm like, no, I want to go, like, that. I want to play soccer too, like, I want to go run track. I wanted to do all these things that involve sports and like trying new things because I was just so curious as a kid. So I played soccer with them. I ran track. I played footy. I did tennis. So I did breakdancing. I did volleyball. Like, anything I could get my hands on, I would do it. The one thing I didn't do was basketball.
Yeah, right.
So I wouldn't have thought that this would be my life right now, playing professionally as a basketball player. So once we moved out to Springvale, that's when I went to a school called Wellington Secondary College at that time. And my classmates, not teammates, my classmates at recess randomly were like, hey, do you think you can fill in for us at our domestic game for the Dolphins at the time at Dandenong Basketball Stadium? And I was like, sure, I don't really know much about basketball. And they were like, it's okay, like, you're pretty athletic enough, I'm sure, like, you'll be able to assimilate, but it's just for one game. And so I went, and then the coach was like, hey, you're actually pretty good. I think we have a spot for you to be on the team. And if you come every Wednesday, then I can coach you to try and, like, I guess, learn the mechanics of the game and learn how to play the game properly. Because I would run so fast and they would throw the ball ahead to me, but then I wouldn't have control to be able to actually finish the layup. So the ball would completely bounce off the backboard and go the opposite way. And so my coach was like, you're athletic enough. I'm willing to work with this. So it was something to do, especially once we moved to Springvale. I wasn't really sure about the programs that were going on around there compared to Collingwood. And so I would attend there every Wednesday night, and that helped me kind of like create a sense of belonging within that new community that we had moved to. And then from then on, it just kind of took off.
Wow. Yeah. So obviously sport gave you that chance to connect with Australian kids and to other kids of different diverse backgrounds. Yep. Do you remember, I know you were really young when you were in the Ethiopian refugee camp, but do you remember, were kids playing sport around there and that you give them a sense of joy and purpose and connection as well?
Yep. No, I don't really remember much about the refugee camp. I was lucky enough in 2024 to have gone back and actually saw a refugee camp. And then I was like, wow, this is what me and my family lived in when I was 5. But more so like if there's a field, and because soccer is the easiest thing of like, you don't need a hoop or anything. Like, kids can put in shoes to have like a goalkeeper and stuff like that. So it was like, soccer is the main sport because that's the easiest to play. And like track is another thing that's the easiest to play. So more so those were the things that people did. Like when I went to the refugee camp, I saw boys playing soccer at a random pitch area that had just straight land. And so they created their own soccer field from there. So I don't think, that's how like that's all I think they play sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you first moved to Australia and you were going to different language school and you were in, just your normal primary school, did you face any barriers then playing sport, or were all the kids welcoming and people trying to include you in and you felt like you belonged?
Yeah. I would say like I was the only girl that was doing that. I was the only girl that would be out there trying to play the sport with the boys, because a lot of the times the girls kind of just hung around, talked to each other, maybe played on the playground. But for me, like I was a bit of if I felt really strongly about something, I'm doing it. And so I would go there and I would demand my spot and I would demand to play. And so I would be in there, and my best friend used to say, oh my gosh, she's such a boy. Like she just goes and does this now. But I'm like, yeah, like I know I can compete with these boys, so why can't I play with them if I can?
Yeah.
So I never saw a barrier, because I'm a female, that I shouldn't be playing with the boys. No, I thought, well, if I could beat you, then that's enough. Like I could be here and I can play. And so I used to play soccer with them, and anything that they would like come up with, I would end up. So I was always hanging around with a lot of the guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I know even when I was at primary school and we'd play footy at lunch, and it'd be full on tackle footy, and we'd be in our, skirts and kilts. Yeah. But it was always like any girls who wanted to play, doesn't matter how good you are, you're on like the lower side. Yeah. And then, it was always, it's childhood politics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the cool kids, they get to play in the good group.
Yeah.
And I remember this one lunchtime, the girls and the not as popular kids beat the cool kids. Yeah. And that was just like, that's still my proudest sporting moment to this day. But it's funny, isn't it, how when you're that age, like you don't have this preconceived bias as to whether girls are allowed to play sport or not. It's just, talent.
It just happens, yeah.
And you're just like, well, I'm good enough, why can't I?
Exactly,
And it goes to show that is what you progressively become to learn, that girls don't belong into these sporting teams, which says a lot about society and their sort of biases and things, which is something we obviously need to override.
Yeah. And I've done it for quite a long time, that now even when I do go play with boys, like my younger brothers will be like, my sister's on my team, like you guys can like go over there. And I love that, like that my brothers have enough, like they're proud of me to a point where it's like, yeah, no, pass the ball to my sister. She knows what she's doing. Give her the ball. Like, I love that. So that's very cool.
So you come from a big family. How many siblings?
There's 7 of us, and then plus me 8. Great. And then we have 10 grandchildren.
Oh, so you've got a few basketball teams.
Huge. Yeah, we do. We've got like 3 or 4.
And is basketball your family's main sport now?
I wouldn't say. I think we still have a 50-50 split of like football, AFL, and then basketball. So yeah, my younger siblings did following me, like playing sports. Like my younger sister, me and her played on the same team at Waverley Falcons basketball in our junior what is it called? VJBL junior leagues.
Right.
And then my younger brothers now, one plays in the States. He's in a college in Kansas. And then my other younger brother plays domestic right now, and he's trying to work his way up to play rep. And then he's also playing footy at the same time.
Awesome. So a sporty family.
Yeah, very sporty, yeah.
And how did you find in your family, I guess, when you moved over to here, was it really important for you to maintain your cultural background and cooking and music and all those things that, are so special to you and your culture?
Yeah, because it's so hard for anyone who comes to Australia at an older age, like my parents or my older siblings, it's really hard to retain a new language. And so for them, holding onto their culture was something I felt like was the only thing they could recognize at the time. And even now it's kind of like, as they were still learning, like that's the one like pride and joy that they wanted to hold on to. And so my mum was a very, very deep cultural lady, and she still is till this day. And so like when we would go to school, we could speak English, but when we would come home, we would have to speak our native tongue. And she was very, I guess, vocal about like us understanding where we come from and not losing that. And so identity was huge, because even now, like within a lot of South Sudanese communities or the younger generation coming up, there's a lot of, I guess, turmoil going on within society about things that kids might be doing at this age that they shouldn't be doing. And a lot of the times I think it is an identity crisis, because when you go to school and you feel like you don't fit in within the Australian community, you go home and you don't know your language, but you feel like you're Australian. There's this like gap that a lot of these kids are battling with. And for me, I was lucky enough that my mom, at the time I used to think, oh, like, gosh, like, let it go. We're not even in Africa anymore. But now I'm so grateful that she's done that, because then I feel like I haven't had to pick between the cultures. Like I could be South Sudanese and be a proud South Sudanese woman and Australia, and at the same time be a proud Australian, and I could have the two. No one said I had to pick between the two. And so that has allowed me to actually be of more value because of the fact that I know my culture, and at the same time I am very proud of the Australian culture as well.
That's right. You've got two platforms to bounce off.
Exactly.
100%. Now, one thing that I really liked when I was doing some research on you is that you said people will hear you're from a refugee camp and feel sorry for you, but you were so in favour of it being an empowerment story as opposed to being a pity story. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no. So when we first come, I think a lot of the times it's outsiders that make that narrative happen, because initially when we came from a refugee camp, we didn't naturally think, oh, poor us, we have nothing, we're poor. Like that's not something that I think was ever in our psyche, like as coming in as a family. It's something that was kind of put upon us, and it came from even just when you go to school and people would talk about Africa in health class, and they would talk about how, you know, it's poverty stricken and like a lot of kids were malnourished. Even though those parts are true, things like that also happen in the Western world as well, in certain parts that aren't always on the media. And so a lot of the times it was like constantly putting Africa in the spotlight, where it was the negative side of Africa. And so for a long time, people in health class would look at me, and the teacher would look at me and be like, is that correct? Like, am I saying this correctly? And part of me would be like, but as an African, I've never experienced that part of Africa. And so for me, even at the refugee camp, we still had enough because our parents went and hunted for those things. They went out and got us the things that we required as children. So I never felt like I was lacking, but I always saw when I would say I'm from a refugee camp, everybody's faces would change. And then for a long time, I thought it was normal. But as I got older and as like in 2024, when I was able to go back home to South Sudan and I was able to visit a refugee camp, part of me felt like, even though that's a part of my story, I can't keep claiming it in a way where you're, I guess, receiving sympathy, because there's people still in that situation today, and it's not only in South Sudan, and there's so many parts of the world where people are fleeing their home countries because of conflict, and it's not by choice. It's not something that they've decided to be a part of. Unfortunately, it's because of governments that they're under their control and that they basically choose the fate of the people. And so for me, I've never seen it as, now I see it as more as an empowerment, because I'm like, I have the voice now to be able to say things about stuff like this. And so for me, I've been privileged enough to go to school. I've been privileged enough to play the sport. I've been privileged enough to travel the world. Like, I wouldn't say I'm no longer a refugee, like, because that is a part of my journey. That's a part of my story. But I'm not in that situation anymore. We've lived in Australia for like 21 plus years. And so I don't want to take away from people that are presently in that situation and feel like, oh, I want people to keep talking about the fact that I'm a refugee because I'm no longer in that situation.
Yeah, definitely part of your story, but not your full story.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's another thing that obviously says a lot about you and your mindset, is that you can focus on what you didn't have, but what you've mentioned is what you did have and what your parents given you. And you said that resilience is in your DNA. You had to make do with what you had, and you made the best out of it.
Exactly.
And it's shaped your character. And all those things are so transferable when it comes to sport. Resilience, not getting in sides, not having, the best shoes, the best equipment, but making do, never giving up, just having such a strong work ethic. And like that gives you more than any flourished childhood would give you, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So how impressed / proud were your parents when you got to captain the South Sudan side?
Yeah. No, they were very proud. They were very excited about the launch of the first ever women's South Sudanese team. And so for me, I was more excited about being able to play on a team where it was a bunch of South Sudanese women playing the sport together, and we were able to have a lot of shared battles that we've had, and we were able to discuss through all those challenges. And it finally made me feel like I wasn't alone in the sport as well, because, now as I'm a multicultural officer at Basketball Victoria, a lot of that came from the fact that I felt like when I was playing, I did feel alone, because a lot of the clubs did not reflect the populations that were outside of those associations, their areas in that time. And so I was constantly always surrounded by Caucasians. And so I had to kind of learn how to navigate that space. And so it did feel like I was the only person. And so fighting through that. But when I went to the States, I was able to see that there was a lot of different backgrounds playing the sport. And so I felt more like it was worth it. What I was doing was worth it. And so I was able to see role models in that space too that were playing in that at that time. And so when we played for the national team, that was like because we're all around the same age as well. So it helped us kind of be like, okay, we're not alone in this. Like we can battle it through. Like you can overcome these obstacles. You could do something great. Someone's at a Power 5 school in the NCAA. Like it's possible to get there. And so being able to see representation like that really helped me like keep going in my own sport. Yeah.
And you said after that there was a bit of a ripple effect where you saw hundreds of Sudanese girls joining in.
Yeah.
So that really speaks to the power of if she can see it, she can be it, right?
Yeah. I feel like anytime people see you on a screen, it's like you've made it. So I feel like when they saw us on TV, there were so many girls when I went back to South Sudan that played the sport because of seeing us on TV. And so a lot of parents also saw it as, okay, maybe there is a pathway in this for girls because these girls in the Western world have made do with what they have, and they've been able to reach platforms that we didn't think were possible. And so that's why even representation alone matters so much, because it's like kids just have to see it to believe it, and that's it. Like they saw it and now it's like, I think I could make it in that area.
Yeah. Provides them with the evidence that it is possible,
that
right?
It is possible,
and it says a lot about visibility and the media's role, and also social media now, that anyone has a phone, anyone can post that, and just seeing more people like them out there, it just gives it gives them permission to go after it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that once they see it, then it's like, even if, let's say, they don't ever make it professionally, they've learnt so much within that process that has allowed them to end up opening opportunities and doors elsewhere, where they might end up meeting someone that might end up giving them a job in a different area. And that's how like a lot of my story has been shaped, is that there's been so many opportunities that have opened up just from playing the sport alone, that I've been able to meet so many different people that have helped me through my journey. And so it's more than this playing the sport alone.
Absolutely. Gives you so many networks and things along those lines.
Yeah.
So tell us now a bit about your journey to the WNBL. So you started in Townsville.
Yeah.
So talk us through all of that and how you've now come to be at the Perth Lynx.
Yeah. So a lot of my journey has kind of just been out of curiosity and just saying yes to when the opportunities arose. And so once I started back to the story of starting in domestic and then getting better in domestic, then someone was like, hey, I think you should play rep. And then I was like, yeah, sure, why not? What's that? Like, I'll do it. So they went and showed me what rep was. I feel like I was doing anything to get out of the house. So as a kid, like, I want to be outside. So I'm like, okay, sure. Like, if there's any other reason for me to not have to do chores at home, like, that's fine. I'll go to that. And so when I started playing rep, then someone was like, hey, I think you're pretty good. Have you ever heard of college? And I was like, no, what's that? And they were like, you can leave Australia and go to America. I was like, sign me up. I will leave this country to go see somewhere else as well. Because, again, when you're a kid and you're, trying to figure out life, you're always like, I want to see what's out there. And so when they gave me the opportunity to go to the States, like, I was so excited about that. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So when I went to the States, I played 5 years there because of COVID. So we ended up getting that 5th year. So I was able to get my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, and my master's degree at that time. So a lot of great stuff came out of those 5 years in college. And after college was ending, my coach was asking me, okay, what do you want to do with your career? I think you should play professionally. And I was like, I think 5 years of college was enough. I don't think I want to keep playing. And she's like, just think about it. Like, I really think you should. And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to change my mind, but okay, I will. I guess I will go back and try and think about it. So when I was able to do my play on initiative in 2024, again, when I was able to go back home to South Sudan, and I collected a bunch of gear, shoes, anything I could find, because within that 4 or 5 years, like, so many players accumulate so many things, and like, there's only so much you can give your family, and there's still a bunch that's ended up being left over. And so I was able to pack all that stuff up and take it back to South Sudan and give it to the kids that were out there. And I feel like that's what sparked my love for the game again, because I was like, okay, cool, these kids look up to me, they know who I am. Because I feel like I've always been humble enough where I always am a local child at heart. So like, no matter where I am from a grassroots level, I'm always like, I want to be with the people. So it doesn't matter how much further I get in the sports, like I'll always come back to where my roots are. And so going there, like everyone's like, oh my God, I've seen you play on social media, this and this. And I'm like, oh, you know my name? And they're like, yes, of course we know who you are. And I'm there like, no, I'm just another. I'm just
You're the
Nya.
hero.
Yeah, I'm just Nya. There's nothing special about me. And so we were able to run those clinics, and the passion that these girls played with, and just like trying to, I guess, soak in everything that I was teaching them, like made me feel like, okay, I think I can continue this game. And I was able to play with them a little while out in the hot sun too of South Sudan. So it was like a lot of fun, and we'd be out there for hours and not even realize it. And so when I came back, I was like, yeah, to my coach, I think I want to play professionally. How do I even start to do that? And she's like, oh, thank God, because I know you can make it professionally. I don't even know why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Then she's like, we can get you an agent and then see how the process goes. And that's when Shannon Seaborn from Townsville reached out to me on Instagram. But my agent had talked to him at the same time. Like it all just ended up working out coincidentally. And then I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll go play for the WNBL. And then from there, I was like, cool. I didn't really know what it was going to take, I didn't know much about the WNBL. The only thing I knew about the WNBL was when Nards was playing at Nya Lok. At the time, she was the only South Sudanese that I saw playing in that league. And so from that point alone, that's all I knew about the WNBL. I didn't know much about it. So when I did go in and play it, it was intense. It was like another level. Like people have mastered their craft so much that they make the game look so easy, but then once you're actually in there and playing with them, you realize how much stronger they are, how much their IQ's up there, like how their skill set, and there's a whole nother level of basketball that you have to learn as a pro athlete of how to take care of your body. It's not everything that you just do on the court, but it's everything that you do off the court. And so I started to learn that, and Townsville was probably, I guess, the best place for me to learn all of that, because they are such a winning program and they work really hard. Like my first year there, we went to the army and did a boot camp, and so it was very intense. And I was telling my mom about it. I was like, I went to the army.
Your mom's like, what are they doing
what
to
are
you?
they doing to you? This is basketball.
Yeah.
And so it definitely challenged me physically, mentally, emotionally. And I feel like I learned so much from there alone. And then, you know, obviously going into the next year, I wasn't really sure if I was going to get contracted again. And I really wanted to, because I wanted a second chance to like redeem myself from my first year of like everything that I learned at Townsville. And then I was lucky enough to be, I guess, a training player or walk on, if you call it, for Southside Flyers. And then I wasn't sure about that as well, because I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to take me in on the roster. Are they not? But it got to a point where I had to stop worrying and kind of surrender the outcome. And then once I did that, I feel like everything changed. Then I got contracted. And then, you know, in the first half of the season, I wasn't playing as much. Sometimes I wouldn't even get on the floor. But for a long time, my advice of like control the controllables, I had to really take that on board. And for me, it was like anything that was outside of myself, I couldn't control, but I could control my attitude. I couldn't control whether the coach was playing me or not. I could control how I show up to training. And so I started to just focus on that alone. And like I could focus on how to cheer on my teammates. And so that alone allowed me to kind of, surrender the outcome and just naturally play without feeling like overthinking the situation or pressuring myself too much. And so then the outcome ended up being great. And I ended up going into the starting lineup and then showcasing everything that I had worked on throughout that season. And then now it's led to Perth. So very exciting.
It's really interesting, isn't it? As soon as you surrender or detach from the outcome or from your desire, how everything just falls into place.
Yeah.
And it goes to show the role that this internal pressure that you put on yourself actually debilitates you from achieving that goal.
Exactly.
And it's not saying, I don't care about it anymore, I'm not going to worry about it. You care about the result and you want to do that. But as soon as you just literally let go, how things just start to fall into place and fall into your favor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because within sports, like a lot of the times you already know how to do, you train so much, you already have the muscle memory for it. It's now your mind that is like taking over, and it's, and that's what I've had to learn. Like, how do I deal with the mental aspect of the game? Because 80% of it is the mental aspect and then 20% is the physical. And so it's like, I had to trust myself that my body already knew what it was doing. Now it's my mind that needs to catch up, and my emotions and how I align that to make sure that I'm being the best version of myself and showing up every day in those spaces. And sometimes I would not put pressure on myself if I didn't have a great practice. And I was like, well, that's just life. Like there's going to be days you're not going to be feeling great. And so that whatever that 100% is, that day, then that's just what it is. Then tomorrow you get a good night's rest tonight, and then you come back better tomorrow. Like every day you wake up, you have another chance to go at it. And so for me, I had to like learn that one day is not the end all be all of like my career. Like it's a process, and that's I guess one of the biggest things I've learned of like trying to engage myself in the process and not the outcome. Yeah.
And the best in the world have off days. Like it's amazing how, especially young athletes, they put so much emphasis on how bad they played in one game and that's it. But everyone has bad days. And as you said earlier, it's how fast you can reset.
Yeah.
Literally, it is a game of mistakes. It's high pressure. There's fatigue. There's different elements. Basketball is probably a little bit different if it's played indoor, that you don't have the wind and things like that. But, you know, there's all these uncontrollables. So, of course, you're not always going to be 100%.
Exactly.
Physically, you can never be 100%.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think it's really important, that message around it was your mindset that probably got you to that next level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like also watching. I'm such an observer, and like my bachelor's degree is in sociology. So I always like am someone who's watching people's behaviors and how they do things. And so for me, it was always looking at veterans and seeing how they approach the game and like how their routines work to try and help them stay mentally engaged, to have those consistent games. And so for me, it's like, I've also learned like when people like you're still young, like you're going to start hitting your peak around now and a couple more years time. Like, so you have all that time to develop and actually get to a point where the game does become very consistent for you because you know your spots. Like a lot of the best athletes within the WNBL, they don't go outside of anything that they know. So it's kind of like they, rather than focusing so much on their weaknesses, they focus more on their strengths. They try to keep making their strengths be the highlight of their game, and their weaknesses like is something that they work on from time to time, but it's not something that they fully focus on. Whereas for me as a young player or coming in as a rookie, I was always focusing on my weaknesses that I was not enhancing my strengths.
Yeah, so you did mention that you described yourself as a perfectionist that only worked on weaknesses as opposed to strength. What changed for you to start looking at strengths? Was it a moment? Was it a coach that said, you know, you really need to focus in and hone in on your strengths? Or was it just your observations yourself?
I would say it was probably therapy.
Yeah.
So I've done therapy for many, many years now, like since college. And so I continued it even when I went to the WNBL. I was seeing a sports psych during my Townsville season. And that kind of helped me put a lot of things that I made up in my mind and try to bring it back to reality and what the reality of it was. And so for a long time, I've had the advice of like, stop looking at it as all or nothing, but look at it as both and. And so for me, it's like looking at it as both and, like, so it's your strengths and there's your weakness. Like it's not like, oh, it's just your weaknesses, or it's just your strengths. And so for me, I've also been asked a lot of times, so what are you good at by veteran players? And I'm like, okay, I'm really good at running the floor. I'm really good at shooting. I'm really good at defending. Okay, focus on those things. Make those your main focus rather than focusing on, oh, I'm not good at the pick a roll yet. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. Because then the more you kind of look at your inadequacies, that's what your mind's going to focus on. It's going to keep bringing that into reality every single time. Like if you feel like, oh, you're focusing on, oh, I can't make a turnover, then you're probably going to make a turnover. So it's like trying to shift your focus where you're not heightening your senses towards the negative side of the game, but rather the positive. So if I know, okay, my goal today is I'm going to run the lane hard every single time, and that's all my focus, and the outcome will just take care of itself.
Yeah. An exercise I like to do about that with young athletes is getting them to look around the room and say, how many black objects do you see? And they'll say, 8. And then I say, well, how many red objects do you see? And they said none. And it just proves that you will always find what you're looking for.
Exactly.
If you have an inadequacy, you're going to find evidence for that. But if you just focus on your strengths and what you're good at, you will find evidence for that as well. So yeah, the mind is an absolutely massive tool that I still think is undertapped. And if you want a competitive edge as a younger athlete, I think those with a strong mindset will always come out on top than just raw talent itself.
Exactly. And for me, a lot of the times I had to tell myself, okay, if I'm best when I'm supporting my teammates. When I'm supporting others and trying to lift them up, it naturally lifts me up. And so that helps, like a lot of times when I'm like, okay, if I can just communicate really well throughout this game and, slap a teammate on the bum, like when they feel like they made a turnover. It's okay, it's good. Like, well, let's get the next possession. That allows me to, like, I'm staying present within the game and I'm not like kind of locking myself out in my mind and focusing on, oh my God, I missed this shot. Like,
Yeah.
I'm about to get subbed out. Like, because then that's what will happen. Like, you will get subbed out because of this. So it's like I have to learn to, focus on the aspects of the game that allow me to thrive.
Yeah. And as you say, like, whatever your weaknesses are will be your teammates' strengths. And that's the whole thing. You complement each other. No one is
Exactly.
expecting you to be 100% at every aspect. That's what a team's for.
Exactly. It's not I in the team.
No.
So it's like you bring something to the team that someone else might not have. And that's why it works well together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about your role as a multicultural officer in Basketball Victoria and what are you trying to achieve there and what are some of the things you've been working on?
Yeah, cool. So I just recently got this role a few months ago, but it's something I actually had been working towards for a year. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, and I love the game of basketball, but there's so many things that I feel like I bring to the table more than just the game, and I always say it's more than basketball. So I don't want it to just solely be bouncing the ball because there's going to be a certain point when I no longer will be able to play the game, and so I've always kind of thought in that lens of like, what else can I do outside of this? So I didn't necessarily think of the title of multicultural officer. I just knew I like to make an impact. I like to help people. What can I do in that area that will help me fulfill that like aspect of what I'm good at? And so at the time, my American dad spoke to me about like what other organizations there, and I was like, okay, Basketball Victoria is one of those organizations. He said, okay, can you go email one of the executives or anybody on the leadership board, tell them, hey, let's go grab a coffee, and that's the old-fashioned way. And so I was like, I didn't actually think about that at all, going to grab a coffee with someone or like writing them a letter, and then I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. I think I'll give that a go, and so I had reached out to one of the board members called Catherine. And so, well, executives actually, let me not say board members because there's different people on the board. But I had coffee with her and I was just telling her about my story. I was just telling her how I grew up, like how I played in rep and how I felt like there wasn't much representation and like within coaches, within referees, within leadership boards. Like I never saw anyone that kind of looked like me in those positions. And so I felt like it was so hard to break through to where I am today. And so I wouldn't want other girls to go through that of like constantly feeling like you're going against your grain and like you don't even know what you're doing it for when you can't see your people in those spaces. And so you think, okay, should I be dreaming for something else and not this? And so I was like, I was lucky enough because I had people that kept encouraging me to keep going. And that's what allowed me to not quit basketball. And I've gained so much from it. So I was like, I would love to see Basketball Victoria. I would love to see rep teams. I would love to see WNBL teams like start to have more diversity within these spaces because there are diverse people that want to be in these spaces, but they just don't know where to start. And so that coffee went really well. And she's like, look, we don't have anything right now as like there's no specific role that's opened. But if you're willing to do clinics and stuff with, I ended up doing it with my colleague called Anita, and she is a part of the Play Our Way programming for getting more female participation involved. So we did a few clinics together. There's so many conversations that we had. We went to schools like the English language schools that we went to, and Anita there learnt so much about people from diverse backgrounds, and her view started to change. And so I was like, this is exactly what it's about, like showing you guys like our side of the story. And a lot of the times when you come as a migrant, like you're constantly having to look at everybody else's story. But when people are able to step in your shoes, then they start to understand, and then spaces start to open up because now they're no longer thinking so narrow-mindedly. They're now thinking more open-mindedly to try and be more inclusive. And there's nothing, I guess people always have fear of asking questions, but it's like, as a migrant, I'm always open to questions. If you actually don't know something, just ask, and then someone will be able to tell you the answer. Or they can tell you, what's the worst they can tell you? Oh, that's offensive. Okay, then that's just what the conversation will lead to. And so I feel like once I did that, then there was a position that opened up as a multicultural officer for partnership with Vic Health to run the Set the Standard campaign. And that was perfect. It literally, all my ducks lined up in a row, all the stars ended up aligning because this is the area where I had talked about with Catherine initially about how we don't have enough diversity within the clubs, within the associations, within board members. And so this campaign just ended up hitting the nail on the head. And then they were like, okay, let's go through the interview process. They interviewed a bunch of other people, but I was like, nah, this is my job. I'm getting this.
Save your time.
And so I was so adamant about it. And so it was cool because the flyers, like everyone was like, oh my God, how did your interview go? And everyone was asking every day, what was it about? Like, and they would see me getting dressed and ready for work after training. And so they were like, oh my God, she's a working girl. So, and it was cool because the State Basketball Center right upstairs is where the Basketball Victoria office is. So I would finish training and then just go straight upstairs and be able to do other things within the sport that is still making an impact. And for me, that's what I always felt like my purpose is, like to make an impact, like wherever I am, no matter whom I'm with and in whatever I do. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I always want to give 110%. And so in that space, like now I literally love going to work like every day. I love what I do and I'm very happy with being able to be in this position. Yeah.
Sounds like you've found your ikigai. Yeah, right? Where you're finding what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. And that's the goal in everyone's lives. But what I want to hone in for the audience is you only got that because you took the proactive step of going out and having that coffee. You use the network that you had from sport, and sport gives you so many networks, but you were the one who went out and got that. It wasn't just handed to you.
Yeah, and my manager brings that up all the time. Like, kudos to you. Like, yes, you got the position, but it's all the work that you did prior to doing that. And so that's why I encourage a lot of kids, like, go out there, like, the worst you can hear is no, like just keep going. Like there was so many jobs that I had applied for that I kept hearing no online. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and talk directly to these people rather than going through websites and stuff and always trying to apply my resume, because it's so much different when someone actually gets to meet you in person from just seeing a paper and all your accolades and stuff. And like they could see that, but like at the end of the day, they still want to interview authenticity. They want to interview someone who actually has natural passion for it. And for me, it was like I have lived experience. That's why I think I'm the best for this role, because of the fact that I know exactly what this role needs.
Exactly right. And sometimes when you hear a no, it just means no for now, right? You can revisit it down the track.
Exactly.
So knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
Again, I feel like I say it all the time, control the controllables. Like there's so many things that as a young adult I used to think about or overthink about, or as a teenager, as a kid. Like I used to worry about so many different things. But now that I've learned to like prioritize certain things that are in my mind that actually matter more than all the things that are actually out of your control, there's actually a lot more out of your control than that's within your control. And so I feel like that has allowed me to free up so much storage of things that lived rent-free in my mind that shouldn't be living there in the first place. And so that has allowed me to learn to let go and then actually now capture everything that is for me. And like I feel like now I'm more better off and I do things with my whole heart and with all my effort. And if it doesn't work out, I'm like, well, it just wasn't meant to be. And then I just move on to the next thing. And so I feel like it's all ended up working out anyway.
And what are some of your goals coming up? Obviously, you're going to Perth for the Perth Lynx, but broader than basketball, what is a legacy that you would love to leave?
Yeah. So I was asked this about my goals of like what the next season has to bring. But honestly, I've kind of stopped making goals because I feel like it takes away, and this is just for me personally, I feel like it takes away from me living presently. And that is all, again, from therapy and how much I've learned from the fact that I need to live in the present. I need to stop living more in the future or stop living too much in the past. And so I've kind of learned to just take it day by day, whatever the day brings. And like, as long as I want to go in there and put my 100% effort, again, the outcome will take care of itself. And so for me, there's no specific goal. It's just going in there and taking those opportunities and getting the most out of the game. And like once the game stops, then I know how much, like I've put in all my effort. I left it out all on the floor or off the court. Like I've done so much already that I will feel fulfilled, like no matter what, if the game stops tomorrow, you know, for me.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think a lot of the time we wish away the present to get to the future, and sometimes realize that this is the time of bliss, right?
Exactly,
and this was once the goal.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important to reiterate that, being in the present and making the most of the opportunities now is more important than worrying about what's going to happen in the future.
Exactly. And there's always so much difficulty. Like you could pray for something and then you could have it, but then there's always a new set of problems that come with what you've gotten. So either way, it's like, okay, cool, I'm grateful that I'm in the WNBL, but it will come with its own challenges that I have to overcome. And so, like, I didn't think I was going to be in it now going into my third year, but like I'm grateful for it. And so I have to kind of bring back my focus to be like, I'm grateful to be here. I begged for this position. I wanted to be here, and now I have to deal with what these challenges bring, but it's a good problem to have.
Absolutely. It's a new identity shift, isn't it? You have to keep being someone new to get to that next level.
Exactly.
Because what got you here won't get you there.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So on the final question, you have experienced what sport can do firsthand in terms of inclusion, in terms of community, in terms of giving you networks and all of those things that happen beyond the court or beyond the field. Why is it important that we try and keep more girls and women in sport?
Yep. Like I said before, I feel like it's so important that we harness what sports bring, because there's so much you learn in it. It's not just it's not the ball, or it's the way it brings people together. It's the way you have to learn teamwork. You have to learn discipline. You have to learn commitment. You have to learn punctuality. By the way, I was really, really bad at punctuality majority of my life. So sport has really helped me to learn how to be punctual. Like, so there's so much more life skills that you learn from sports alone, that it's not just about sports. It's not just about making it somewhere. It's like everything that you can learn and that you can take into your next realm. Like, there's so many athletes or corporations that say, especially when I was in the States, so many organizations hire athletes because of so many things that they learn in the game of how to deal with different personalities and how to lead, how to communicate. Like, they've learned all those things from just playing on the court or on the field that naturally transfers over into the real world. And so those skill sets are the things that you can use. And so I feel like also sports helps with self-esteem. Like, there's so many things that I've learned to be comfortable with my body, and like that it's we all look different. We have different shapes, we have different sizes, and that's just the game. You just have to learn how your body works and the best way to approach your body to be the healthiest version of yourself. And so I feel like I've gotten so much confident from being in a sports world alone. I even had a friend one time say, you sports people, you walk with your head held high and you walk. And I didn't like necessarily ever think about that. And she's like, and then now I started to look around. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we do. We walk with a bit more confidence because we are more comfortable with our bodies, and we are more, like, physical activity alone helps so many different health benefits within that alone, so that you do feel more better about yourself. And so I feel like there's so many things that sports provide rather than just the game itself. Like, as a female, you will learn so much about yourself.
Absolutely. And we look at ourselves more for what our bodies can do rather than what they look like.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think that is such an empowering piece.
Exactly right, yeah.
Well, Nya, I have absolutely loved this chat, and you have an incredible story, but I just think that the most incredible thing about you is that you don't focus on what happened in your past. You focus about what that has given you and what you were working on in the present. And as a thank you for coming on, the Turak Hotel, who is sponsoring us now, is giving you a $100 gift voucher to use, and I hope you take your family there. Have a great feed. For all the listeners out there, it is a beautiful pub, and it is a very inclusive space to go and watch sport, to have a drink and some food with your friends and family. So make sure to get on down. All the information for that will be in the show notes. But congratulations on what you have achieved so far, and I can't wait to see what is in store for you in the future. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was so fun. It was so thought-provoking. I feel like there was a couple of questions I was like, oh, wow, I actually haven't thought about those certain things. So I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to do this. So,
absolute pleasure. And I'm glad that this was your first podcast.
Yes.
God, imagine how good they're going to get.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
Thanks, Nya. You've been listening to 4TG, where the future of women's sport is being shaped, one story at a time. If today's episode hit home, subscribe, rate 5 stars, and send it to someone who needs that push. Stay in the loop at 4TG_podcast or on 4TG.com. We'll see you next time. Same mission, same movement. This one was for the girls.